Hello there, and welcome back to War Thunder, to some first impressions on the new Italian high-tier main battle tank that is the Ariete. Now, a lot of you have requested it to see it and have claimed that it is an overlooked tank, that it is just not represented on YouTube. If that is true or not, I don't really care. It was on my list to do anyways. And thanks to Gaijin, I have a test drive on this vehicle again, and so I can present it to you. Today I want to just take a step away from the usual salt mine that I'm digging when reviewing or doing some first impressions on high-tier tanks anyway, but you will see kind of a point in this match that I want to present you where I still have a problem with a top tier. You will see it when you will see it. Just watch the kill messages later. The match that I played was on this nice beautiful desert map that allows me to move around, to have my situational awareness working out, to get shots into the enemies at range and not just around the corner. So, what is the Ariete? Well, it is at battle rating 9.7, and that battle rating could be 10.0, it wouldn't make a difference, both in terms of performance, but also in terms of what you play against. I only had one match in all the matches that I played where I actually was fighting 8.7s, the rest was versus 10.0s. Okay, so this tank comes after the OF40 Mark IIA, and so that's a battle rating jump of 1.0. The stock grind, on the other hand, is significantly better than both the OF40 Mark IIA and also the counter from the Americans, the M1A1, which has a very similar gun, because you have the stock APFSDS, that is the DM23, and that shell is what I used in all my gameplays, because for side shots, shots through the rear, and barrel gun breach sniping, it was sufficient. Yes, the DM33 as a tier 4 upgrade is better, no doubt about this, but it is also not that inexpensive with 900 civil lines per shot, and that adds up quickly. So, I mean, I have a little bit of a pile of DM33 with me, but I just try to run through the DM23 first, and also I have here a few heat shells with me. I tried it out a little bit. It was probably not the world's greatest loadout, but you know, I'm experimenting here a little bit. Still, at high tier. Okay. So, the gun is excellent. It has 6.0 seconds reload for an A screw, like the Leo 2A5 and also the M1A1, and that is then a second slower than an A screw on the 105mm Abrams, but also than the Type 90. Just to bring things into perspective. So the gun works, the gun is really good. A good stabilizer, a good muzzle velocity, good damage, everything's fine. But again, we have kind of this L7 experience, where throughout all the nations, if you are not Russian, you need to have an L7, a licensed build version of the L7, or a renamed L7. Yeah, and so we have this now at top tier, that it's the L44. In various different variants. The Americans have a different name for it. The Italians have a different name for it. The Germans use the original name. So you kind of see where this is going, right? Now let's talk about the second part, and that is the armor. The top, the rear, the side, they are really weak, somewhere between 35 and 20 millimeters. That is not really strong, but it is kind of in typical top tier main battle tank fashion. That's just the design philosophy. So what is about the front armor? Is there anything of noticeable interest? Well, actually, yes, and that is that the hull in particular is rather weak for top tier standards, and so a lot of people, surprisingly enough, already seem to know this tank quite very well and seem to identify it amongst the 50 shades of black gun breaches, that this tank is not necessarily in demand of getting shot in the gun breach, because the hull is so weak that you can pan it even with a lot of the stock APF STS that is floating around. And there is then also a big fat ammo rack. Sadly, or for a change, none of the ammunition is in the turret. Yes, there is ammunition in the turret basket, but directly in the turret there is no ammunition at the back of the turret. And the rest is either in the frontal ammo rack of the hull next to the driver, like in the older top tier tanks, such as the Leopard 1 and T54s, that kind of ammo rack, right? So it's on the left hand side of the tank. If you shoot at it, you shoot at the right hand side and you get an ammo cook-off. And this is also when the tank is facing you, where the turret basket ammunition lies. Okay, so the hull is not really strong, but it's also not necessarily paper. So versus SPA, it should be safe. And that leaves only the turret to talk about. So it has quite an interesting composition that includes air, that includes then also Nero elements, high hardness, rolled, homogeneous armor, etc. But it doesn't add up to a value where it is in any way, shape or form reliable against the APF STS that's flying around at this battle rating. So don't rely on it. But there are some cases where it seems like APF STS is going through the turret without doing any sort of damage. Now again, part that is down to the fact that there is no ammunition in the back of the turret, and the gun breach is not really that big. Now when I say the gun breach is not that big, it is as big as any other gun breach from the front, but not so much from the side, it seems like. This should be the same with the Leopard 2A5, but I have different experiences. So that is now the armor. It is not the tank's strength. The firepower is on a very good standard. What about the mobility? Well, the mobility is kind of a mixed bag, to be honest. It has roughly a horsepower to ton ratio of 25, only roughly, and that leaves you in this interesting spot where under best of circumstances, the tank feels really strong, really maneuverable, and you just go forwards and backwards like a boss. You turn, it's all crazy good. But if then suddenly you have to climb, let's say, a sand dune, or you just have to go through mud or non-really optimal underground, then the tank feels really weird, especially when turning. Like you have to turn and then it forces you into this neutral steering that costs time. The tank breaks down to then accelerate slowly, and it takes time and just those moments, and it's really frustrating. But I have the same experience with the M1A1. I have the same experience with the Leopard 2A5. It's just a Western high tier tank thing, okay? Which I absolutely despise, and I think this is why I like the Russian tanks at this battle rating actually more, because you don't have this weird, stupid, forcing you out of your current driving mode, if you will, into the neutral steering, etc. I try to avoid those situations in the first place, but it's not really working out every single time. That was a shame that I didn't aim properly here versus this guy. Yeah, and that's my ace right there. Meanwhile, there was an enemy helicopter, namely an AH-1Z, going on a rampage. And now I try to defend here this capture zone for my team. And I try to alternate my positions. Again, listen to my surrounding, etc. So what this tank is kind of a budget version of the Leopard 2A5. It's fast, it's maneuverable most of the time, it has amazing firepower, it has a not so drastic stock grind for the stock ammunition at least, or to get to any sort of usable APF STS, since the Heat FS is again not weak or useless, but there is so much era protection, there is so much composite armor that is very strong against chemical energy based weaponry, that this is kind of a drawback. And that now brings this battle kind of to an end. I heard this tank, I prepared, and I'm quite sure that here I shot first and the shell did no damage. Yeah, and that spells kind of the end for me. So I tried to reverse here, I smoke up, but there is just no time. There is no support in any way, shape or form in the near vicinity. So pinging the map, calling it out, it's not really worth it. And then at the end of the day, surprise! Yeah, the AH-1Z got me. Kind of disgusting how good helicopters. As a final verdict for this tank in terms of first impressions, again, this is not what I understand by a review. I think this tank is just more of the same. It has the same firepower, same mobility, same armor weak spots like the majority of high tier tanks. And honestly, what did you guys expect from this video? It's not my fault that all tanks are like these. And probably the meta could be better. We could have different maps, we could have different objectives. Maybe even fighting AI would be more interesting than just 50 shades of broken gun breech barrel. I don't know. I'm not really mad at this point. I just, work the list down of the tanks and be done with it. But honestly, what did you guys expect? I'm sorry. I'm sorry about this, and I hope that you can understand this. And hopefully at some point I'm done with the amount of high tier stuff to then go back into air RB or ships and have there a better time. Having said this, that's it for me today, so I hope you still enjoyed the video and I hope that you found the information that I gave you helpful. If so, please give this video a like, subscribe if you want to see more, and we'll see each other on the waves, in the skies, and on the battlefields of War Thunder.